Hi, I'm Squidinha, and today we're talking about a deal you'd probably take without thinking twice, right up until you actually understood what you were agreeing to. Someone offers you forever. You never age. You never get sick. You never die in an accident, a fire, a war, anything. You simply keep existing. Not for a long time. Forever. Picture it for a second. No deadline. No clock running out. Unlimited time to learn every language on Earth. Master any instrument. See every ocean, every mountain, every country. Watch history happen instead of reading about it in a textbook. Would you take it? Most people say yes instantly. Of course you would. Who wouldn't want more time? But forever is a very long time. And it doesn't do what you think it does. Tell me I'm wrong before you've even heard the rest. Go on. Most people do, right up until year 100. The first 100 years are everything you imagined. You learn 3 languages before most people finish learning 1. You become genuinely excellent at things, because you have no ticking clock forcing you to rush. You fall in love. You build something. You watch your 20s become your 50s become your 80s, except your body never follows along. You stay exactly as you were. Then you hit 100, and something quiet happens. You look around and realize every person who knew you as a child is gone. Not distant. Gone. You are now older than anyone you have ever personally known. You've become the oldest person in every room, permanently. And here's the part almost nobody expects going in, the reversal that catches everyone off guard. You assumed the hard part of immortality would be running out of things to do. It isn't. You will never run out of things to do. There is always another language, another skill, another coastline. The thing you actually run out of is people who stay long enough to watch you do any of it. You braced for boredom. What actually gets you is arithmetic. Keep going. 1,000 years pass. You've watched countries appear on maps and vanish off them. You've watched languages drift so far from where they started that your first language would sound like nonsense to a modern ear. Someone asks how old you are, and when you tell them the truth, they laugh, because the number doesn't fit inside a human sentence. Somewhere in there, a childhood friend, someone you loved, someone whose voice you can still hear, becomes a name in a record nobody reads anymore. You remember them. Nobody else does. You are the last place they still exist. That's the moment the deal reveals its actual terms. It was never you get to keep living. It was everyone you love keeps dying, and you keep being the one left holding it. You start doing the math without meaning to. Every new friendship arrives with an invisible countdown already running. Every person you let yourself care about is a loss you've already agreed to survive. So you start protecting yourself. You get a little more distant. A little slower to attach. Not because you stopped caring, but because caring has a bill attached to it, and you're the only one who ever has to pay it. You start noticing the pattern everywhere once you know to look for it. A city you helped build gets torn down and rebuilt 3 separate times, each generation certain their version is the permanent one. A word you used every single day slowly stops meaning what it used to mean, and then stops being used at all, and then shows up centuries later in a linguistics paper as a curiosity. You watch entire belief systems form, harden into unquestionable fact, and dissolve, all while you're standing in the same spot, unchanged, taking notes nobody asked you to take. 10,000 years in, you walk into a museum and see an artifact from your own childhood behind protective glass. The little placard says approximately 10,000 years ago. You were there. You remember the smell of that room. And the entire species around you now calls it ancient history, a guess, a footnote. You are not reading about the past. You are the past, still walking around, still breathing, still very much not finished. Here's the part that should worry you more than the loneliness does. Human urgency isn't a personality trait. It's a side effect of running out of time. Psychologist Laura Carstensen spent decades studying this, and what she found is that the fewer years people believe they have left, the more selective and intentional they get about who and what they let into their lives. Time pressure is what makes a life feel like it's being lived on purpose instead of just happening. Now remove the pressure completely. Take away the ending. And watch what happens to "I'll do it tomorrow." It stops being a small lie you tell yourself. It becomes structurally true. There is always another tomorrow. So why finish anything? Why choose one path when you technically have room for all of them, eventually, someday, later? You don't lose your ambition. You lose the reason ambition ever mattered in the first place. Psychologist Philip Zimbardo spent his career studying how people's sense of time shapes their behavior, and one of his clearest findings was that a strong future orientation is what drives people to plan, to commit, to actually finish things. Take away any meaningful sense of an ending, and that drive doesn't intensify. It goes slack. You'd think infinite time would make you do more. It does the opposite. It makes urgency, the thing that was quietly running your whole life, completely optional. And when something is optional forever, most of the time, it just doesn't happen. So you start repeating things instead. Not because you're sad. Because nothing costs anything anymore, so nothing means as much. You watch another sunrise. You've watched around 30,000 of them by now, give or take. You taste something new, and it tastes like something you've already tasted, because after enough centuries, almost everything eventually does. This isn't boredom in the way you understand boredom, the kind you fix with your phone. This is what researchers call hedonic adaptation, first mapped out by psychologists Philip Brickman and Donald Campbell, who found that human beings recalibrate to almost anything, good or bad, until it stops registering as anything at all. You were built for a life short enough that things stay vivid. Stretch that life past its design limit, and vividness is the first thing that quietly disappears. You are not broken. You are exactly what a human mind does when you remove the one constraint it was built around. You start to wonder whether the version of you from year one would even recognize the version of you standing here now. Same memories. Same face, technically. But grief does something to a mind when it happens enough times in a row, and by year 10,000, you've grieved more than any human timeline was ever supposed to hold. You are not the same person who took the deal. You are what's left after the deal finished doing its work on you. Keep going, because the deal doesn't stop at 10,000 years. Humanity itself starts thinning out. Maybe it doesn't end in fire or collapse. Maybe it just changes into something you no longer recognize as your species, the way you no longer recognize the language you were born speaking. Eventually the last human civilization goes quiet. The planet keeps turning. You're still on it. Then the sun changes, the way it eventually has to, and Earth stops being somewhere you can stand. So you leave, because leaving is still possible, and staying isn't. 1,000,000 years pass. 100 million. 1 billion. Stars you once used to navigate by have already burned out and been replaced by stars that hadn't formed yet when you started counting. Galaxies drift into new shapes. You keep expecting the scale to eventually stop feeling strange. It doesn't. It just keeps getting stranger, one unimaginable stretch of time at a time, and you keep being there for every single stretch of it, the one constant in a universe that has otherwise rebuilt itself from scratch more times than you can count. Everything that once told you who you were, your country, your language, your family, your species, your planet, is gone. Not hidden. Gone, the way your childhood friend's name is gone from every mouth but yours. If everything that ever gave your life meaning eventually disappears, and you're still standing there when it does, what exactly is left holding your life together? You'd think, after that much time and that much loss, you'd stop feeling anything at all. That would almost be a mercy. But you don't. Somewhere in the numbness, small things still land, an old song, a shape of light, a stranger's laugh that sounds like someone you buried under a different sky. The capacity to be moved never fully leaves. That might be the cruelest detail in the entire deal. Here's the actual paradox, the one underneath everything else. A deadline is what gives a choice its weight. A finite number of days is the reason today matters at all. When you only get so many chances, choosing one thing over another actually costs you something, and that cost is exactly what makes the choice mean anything. Take the deadline away completely, and you can always wait. You can always start later. You can always try again, because again is infinite. You end up with unlimited time and less reason to spend any particular piece of it. Knowing all of that now, would you still take the deal? Don't answer too fast this time. Maybe immortality wouldn't have to be a curse. Maybe, eventually, somewhere past the millionth year, an immortal mind would discover that meaning was never something a deadline handed you for free. Maybe meaning is something you have to choose to build, on purpose, even when you technically have forever to get around to it. That's a harder version of meaning than the one you're used to. But it's still there to reach for. Maybe the strange thing about being human was never that your life ends. Maybe it's that your life ends, and somehow, that's exactly what makes it worth something. You don't have forever. You have today. And one day, today will be something you remember, a version of you that existed for exactly one moment and then never again. That's not the tragedy. That might be the whole point. I'm Squidinha, and if this made you look at your own tomorrow a little differently, I made this channel for that feeling. Come find me again next time.